on Ring Road, Westlands. Talk to us through the morning. Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, leveraging what's available here with what is available on the other side of the pond, and using that towards economic development in the country. Laban Juguna is our guest this hour, and we continue to look at that. We've come off an hour where we spoke about, the Finance Act and, where government continues to look for much needed funds and resources to be able to run the thing, And from what you're saying, the options are available, but they just need to take advantage of them, Laban?
Yes. I still insist on a whole government approach. I think right now you have a few ministries or state departments taking the lead and just being there, kind of out on their own. I think one of the newest state departments is the State Department for Diaspora Affairs. Mm-hmm. And those guys have done a fantastic job. From everything I've seen and heard, I think Kenyans in the diaspora are very satisfied with this entity. There's room for improvement. There are things they can do better. But so far, I think they've done a fantastic job. I think when it comes to austerity measures and this finance bill, I think everybody was getting a haircut. But if government listens, I hope this is one of the things they'll listen to. I do not think that the State Department of Diaspora Affairs is one of the entities that should be getting a haircut, especially because we see how dire the need is when it comes to these jobs. And to me, I believe fundamentally that life is about relationships. We've been here now twice as the state of Nebraska to Kenya, wanting to open up more trade. So we have demonstrated the commitment to work in areas that can be mutually beneficial. So for me, I do believe that if government is able to look at these markets, their unique needs, and start preparing Kenyans for those markets, the technical aspects of things I think are already there. They're in place. It's just now these soft issues. Cultural and orientation programs. What you do in the U.S. or what is acceptable there might not be what is done in Europe or acceptable there.
Yeah.
So there needs to be an emphasis on that. The biggest thing for American employers is retention, especially in industries like trucking where the turnover is at 90%.
Why?
I have no idea. It's high because people move from one trucking company to another, looking for greener pastures, whether they believe that to be true or not.
And the job is well paying, this particular job of trucking.
For example, they started off at about $65,000.
That's per year.
Per year.
Yeah.
Per year. So even it's about 700,000 Kenya shillings a month. But the thing with those jobs is you're away from home, at a couple of weeks at a time, maybe more. One of my partners is in the logistics industry. He runs a trucking company. His turnover is about 40%, which is really low. That's like a miracle in the trucking industry. And his main thing is just how he treats his drivers. Everything that he does in that company is geared towards making his drivers have a fantastic experience, a seamless experience. The support staff and how they're trained to be able to support these drivers to succeed in the field. But most companies or many companies won't do that. And then you have a generation now, trucking for a long time in the United States was kind of a career that people aspired to. And that's not happening anymore. But that's where I say there's opportunity for us. I think starting this year, for the next 10 years, the United States is going to need about 100,000 truck drivers annually. And they're not going to get those people locally.
So I almost hear you saying that there's an opportunity where that can happen. Because, okay, so you talked about diaspora. So now we're trying to connect the dots. Talked about diaspora and how that needs to be opened up and see what opportunities are available there and what the ministry and with that department is doing here. All right? We've said in the US and some other countries, US specifically, there's availability, 100,000 people to be in the trucking industry.
Trucking, that's just one area.
Just one area. So if we were to connect the dots, there's possibility of training on this side with opening up of the conversations on the other side and connecting the dots where we already know that there is a huge diaspora contribution towards Kenya's economy every year and that we could see that raising that particular profile just because of the opportunity that's available. Is government aware? You are aware. Are these some of the things that you share when you come?
Yes, and if they weren't, now they are, that you've brought it up. Yes, so there's a lot of areas that we can be able to train towards. Now, some of these jobs, the biggest hurdle with the U.S. labor market when you're an immigrant is the immigration process, especially for employment. It's tedious, it's long, it's expensive. But we have employers who are willing now to shoulder that burden as long as there's a commitment from individuals to fulfill the agreed amount of time that they're going to work for. So if you go there and you've agreed, for 4 years, I'll work for you, and then after that, we'll figure things out, then you got to honor that, because number one, don't forget that there's always someone behind you in Kenya also seeking an opportunity.
Yep.
So you can either burn it for them or you can go and be a good ambassador for who the Kenyan worker is, right? So when we're speaking about workforce development, that's exactly what we need to do. Identify these areas, and then government should aggressively go for them. This is going to be good long term, at least for the people that are out there, educated, a lot of energy and creativity, and they don't have a place to exert that energy.
Yeah.
So if government can really take a holistic approach to this, I think there'll be very good outcomes all around.
Let me ask the question. The best practices. You said there are countries who have their citizens working in the U.S. and there are certain sectors where you'll find a dominance. The presence is greater. What has been their government's participation now? Because and how is it that they've made this possible?
So, for example, if you look at the Philippines, the Philippines have a whole pretty much ministry for immigrant labor. They figured that out, and then they trained their people to go and take these nursing jobs, some of this, cosmetology jobs and things like that. And if you go to the Philippines, you'll see an industry of really training these people to be able to take advantage of those jobs. I think the Kenyan government can do that, can brand it, can train out there and be able to market this labor, to be able to take advantage of this. You look at India and you look at the ICT sector in the United States, they come in their hundreds of thousands every year. You go to a place like North Dallas, you won't find anybody else there. A whole part of Texas that's literally just people from India. Housing, everything. You go, doctors, everything. You'll just find a lot of Indian people there. And that's what I'm saying. If we do get a government approach that sits down and understands this is the opportunity and this is how we take advantage of it, I think a lot can be done for people that don't have good paying jobs.
I'm going to ask an unfair question, but I need to ask it. So, for them to have that number of people, okay, they do have the numbers. What is this specialized training beyond the technical knowledge or the academic knowledge that somebody must have that goes into ensuring that these are suitable individuals who will fit into that economy and ensure that they actually thrive, given that, because the requirement for the job is one thing.
Yes.
Whether you'll actually fit in and be able to live well there is another thing.
So that is why, together with the Department of Diaspora Affairs, we have come up with a cultural orientation program for the United States. Very extensive. It teaches you how to become a member of that community, how to fit in, understand the financial system and how things work there. They're very different. And for those of you that have traveled, even if it's not for a long time, you do realize that we do things completely different out there than we do over here. So if we're setting people up for success, then that training begins here. That training begins here. It's emphasized and hammered home so that when people go there, they can understand that it's not just you.
Yeah.
You have the, there's a lot of people back home or in the country here who are banking on you to get it right as well. Yeah.
Okay. So the whole of this conversation, one thing that has struck me is you have put the government right at the center of this. Don't you think private sector-driven initiatives work better and work more? And I believe you come from the private sector. That's perhaps the reason why you're here. That's perhaps the reason why your state identified you. Don't you think wherever government takes the lead, people tend to shy away, as opposed to when private sector takes the lead? I know something that is happening. Last week, I had the Labour Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Alfred Mutua, and one of the things that they said is they are relooking at the certification of all the agencies, for example, that are involved in taking people abroad. Forget about the US, but just abroad generally. So private sector versus government, you will still go for the government because you put them right at the center of this.
So here's the thing, and I don't want to seem like a government basher, but I also do realize that they do have a place in this. You need to understand, in America, we try to get, it's in us, it's in our DNA. You want as little of government in your life as possible, right? You try and make sure that anything you can do as a business, as an individual, you do without government assistance or support. So it's a little bit different out here, where a lot of things will need government participation for them to be able to thrive and succeed.
Right.
Especially if we're trying to look for the face of Kenya, then we kind of need a government. For example, I didn't know there's, I think, over 250 TVETs in Kenya. I didn't know which ones have programs that are doing, for example, HVAC, but they're there. They have fantastic departments. I went to Eldoret Polytechnic. They have a HVAC whole department over there. Automotive, Mary Polytechnic, unbelievable. The kind of facilities and instructors they have over there. They've done a fantastic job. I'd never have known those things, right? And there are many others in Kenya that are doing different things. These national polytechnics are fantastic. So I think government does have a role to play. I don't think it's government-led. I'm private sector. I'm not government. But on this end, especially at this nascent stages of thinking about how to access this American market in a significant way for those jobs, I think government has to have a part to play.
Okay, so how would you see, because there are already a number of people, for there to be an entire department for diaspora, that means that there are clearly a number of people who are already clicking in and they're already engaging. But what we're saying is that it needs to be a lot more, streamlined. It needs to be regulated and then create opportunity for others to join. Do you see that those steps or those strides are being made with as much caution or with as much deliberation as is needed just from what we've said in terms of the potential that's available to really harness this potential that's available to build on this side?
Yeah, let me plug the person that's leading the State Department of Diaspora Affairs, Rosalind Jogu. I think that's what, to me, epitomizes someone who's probably come from the private sector and gone into government and made a huge difference. She does get it. She does understand the diaspora. She does understand what the need is. Government, my understanding is they're pretty protective of their toughs, right? So this is something that has to probably come from the top. Having this whole government approach and having somebody chair that or lead that in a way that will be advantageous both to Kenya and to the Kenyan people. There's something unique that Kenya has that the region doesn't have.
Doesn't have?
Kizungu. So the way we communicate, with the clarity that we communicate with, that is such an attractive element over there. And so I'm not even worried about people trying to source from other areas. I just wanted that when this Kenyan employer goes there, this employee, that the employer there will be wondering why they never, thought about accessing Kenya sooner.
Yeah.
But government, for example, my understanding is, this our diaspora department is getting a haircut of 50%. 50%. And if you look at the return on investment, I mean, come on, we're doing a few $1 billion.
So that's why it would look as though then there's no direct interest in making sure that some of these things happen. Exactly,
because you sit down and ask yourself, is government getting this bit that, number one, despite what we're doing as far as remittances are concerned, the Kenyan diaspora is more than that. We can leverage them for these jobs. We can leverage them for opportunities and relationships in the U.S. market. And I don't think we're being utilized that effectively, at least not most of us. And that's where government can be able to do better by having presence, by coming out there, whether it's doing job fairs or letting them know that we do have the necessary skill set that's here. But who leads that effort? I don't know.
The government talks about, the president has said very clearly, in no uncertain terms, and talked about the thousands of jobs that are available, in different parts of the world. And when you do a little bit of scrutiny, you kind of find out what kinds of jobs those are. But we don't see them equating. And if you just look a little closer, you don't see them equating to some of the numbers, that you've been talking about this morning. And so maybe, less skilled positions, less skills required for those positions, less time, and that you can move from one to the other. Do you think there's space for those as well?
I do. Remote jobs. And I think there's a huge opportunity there as well. We find also Philippines, again, has taken a lot of advantage in this area when it comes to accountants, when it comes to customer service reps, people that we can use here, mainly because we have fantastic communication, fantastic internet. So those remote jobs is another area that we can tap into in a big way.
Yeah.
But then again, they don't know. They don't know Kenya has this capacity or this capability. And so, for me, government has to understand the importance of branding and marketing this product, this labor product that's coming. We've educated all these people, spend a lot of resources to do that. Can we now at least put some resources towards making sure that these people are gainfully employed?
Yeah. What would it look like if there actually was? We want to take brush and paint this picture of Utopia where everything is working, in some kind of symbiosis and everything looks good. But what would it look like if a little bit of what you're talking about was actually achieved and that government was actually sending the proper message to the right audience in terms of who was going to pick it up, and that there was reciprocity from the other side as well, whereby you say, okay, this is great, this is actually what we need, and then you enter into this dance where people are leading and following. What would it look like?
We probably wouldn't have people in the streets to begin with. But I do think for an employer on the other side, this is what gives them the capacity or the capability to move to the next level.
Right.
For an employee, it's being gainfully employed and your skill set being appreciated and utilized in the right way. These are very different markets. Like I said, there's a lot of challenges when you get to a new place. But I think that's also exciting, to be able to discover and experience or explore something totally different. The goal here would be those dividends that come to these individuals there will trickle back this way. Most people who are coming for immigrant labor jobs will end up coming back here, whether it's in retirement or to settle. I think we've seen some of these programs that have been done with government, like the one to the UK. People come back here. When you have 350 people coming back with a few million in their pocket, that's impact in the communities that they come from.
Yeah. And
these jobs are not temporary. These are permanent jobs, especially in North America. We're talking about permanent jobs. Apart from ag jobs that may be temporary, like 9-month jobs, most of these others are on 2, 3, 4-year contracts, which is a good amount of time for somebody to be able to build themselves up and do something significant. If after those 4 years they've had enough, home is always here.
Yeah.
And you can come back and grow and build Kenya.
Do you think?
Yep. Okay. So where we are right now is that, putting all of this together, there is a need, right? There's an opportunity. There's a government in place. The structure is there. The structure is in place. Structures on the other side also available. And it's very clear that all of these things can actually come together. Does it matter the character of the individuals who are in government at that time to see it? Because, it doesn't take much for you to see the opportunity, but then it would take more for you to do something about it after having seen the opportunity. Does the character of the individual who sits in that position at that time, who then needs to do something about all of this and bring it together, matter? Maybe somebody doesn't really care. They could say they do, but maybe somebody's not really interested in that aspect, or doesn't actually see that there's a huge opportunity here that you can actually fill up some of the holes that clearly Finance Act 2023-2024 has not. Does it matter who the individual is, or should you just be able to look at it and say, you know what, guys, here's an opportunity, let's take it and run with it?
Yeah, leadership matters, right? Some of these things, maybe like labor, is not something that is usually at the top of the totem pole when you're talking about, governments. But I think for any country in sub-Saharan Africa, if I think now it's a national security issue.
Yeah.
They need to address this, and they need to address this in a holistic and serious way. If it continues being lip service and mouth talk, then these guys are going to be in for a hard time. Whatever government that is, whether it's this one or the one that comes after that. But bottom line is, the opportunities are there.
Yep.
Government needs to have a cohesive approach to accessing these jobs. And most of it is basically, to me, if they're able to brand this labor, if they're able to market it in the right way and to the right industries there, you're going to see a lot of people go to North America and be able to take advantage of this.
And it will work. Laban Njuguna, thank you very much for being here this morning. Founder and CEO of Zabuni Specialty Coffee. We've been looking at what Kenya can actually take advantage of on a global scale. Thanks so much. Conversations continue in the future. Thank you for keeping it Kenya's biggest conversation throughout this Tuesday.